Welcome everyone. Today I'm filming from my home. I want to welcome all the millions and millions of people that are out there seeking and searching for this beautiful experience of enlightenment, this beautiful experience of discovering this kingdom of power, this kingdom of righteousness, this kingdom of consciousness that is in you. You don't have to pay for it. It is absolutely free, and it is in you, and it cannot get away from you. And I have been talking to you on these short scripts of film that I've been sharing with you. Of course, I've been riffing in a sense of I don't have a real script. I don't write down my notes or anything like that. I speak from the top of my head. So sometimes I miss something if I was trying to had an intention of trying to speak on something and I miss something. Sometimes it's never spoken because it was always in my head. It never came out. But we're going to expand on the imagination, on walking in the Spirit, and we have been discussing on our lessons, on the explanations on how this is done. And so this is another one of those short lessons. I will try to keep this as short as possible on how to walk in the Spirit. That spirit inside of you is your human imagination. And this is a very powerful understanding. It is spiritual knowledge. This is what faith is. Being able to call things into existence that is not seen with your two natural eyes, but is seen as though it is seen. So calling a thing into existence that is not seen as though it is seen. And that's how consciousness works. That's what the scriptures talk about the Bible. By calling a thing into existence that is not seen as though it is seen. And walking in imagination is absolutely powerful because you begin to get into a state of flow where things begin to flow into your life because you're learning how to use this power. And imagination is absolute power. It is light. It is energy. And as you have watched those short films prior to this one, you would have learned this allows you and gives you the ability to walk through walls, to go anywhere in the world, to travel, to do anything that you want. You know, sometimes when you are somewhere and someone's talking about something bad or something good, and they'll say, man, could you imagine that? Oh man, could you imagine that? Dang, can you imagine that? And so people are always using it, but they don't know how to direct it, how it's used. But they're always telling you to use it. They're always telling you to use it. And so I'm showing you and teaching you how to use this imagination and the capabilities of it. It is endless, and all things become possible for you. And there's not a thing in the world that you cannot accomplish. But with your imagination is pure power. And if you can learn this, it will change your life. It will transform your life. It is the Savior in man. It is Jesus Christ in you. He is the Savior. And He is there to save you out of any situation that you find yourself stuck in. And I've been talking about money, but I want to talk about health now. I've run into people who are stricken with a disease, stricken with an ailment, and have been able to use the power of the imagination. And I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to give you two examples. The first example is of a man who is now in his mid-50s. He has no legs. And at the age of 14, he had MS. And so the legs had to come off. and he's been living the remaining of his life, these 30 plus years, with no legs, and he's in a wheelchair. And so I talked to him, and I said, after we were doing some things, I said, hey, and I've got to leave names out of this, so because people may know him. And I said to him, I said, would you like to walk again? And he looked at me as if, well, how are you going to make that happen? And I said, well, I'm physically not going to do anything for you, but there is another power. There is a law in which I live by. And this law is pure power. And he says, well, how? And so I go over the imagination with him and how it works in the imaginal act. And we perform the imaginal act together. Several months go by, and he had no legs. But several months go by, and he runs into an individual. And this particular individual paid for him to get prosthetic legs. Mind you, at the age of 14, he lost his legs. He's in his mid-50s. He hasn't walked for over 30 years of his life. And here's a man that he didn't really know. He ran into this man and came across this man several months after we performed the imaginal act. And this man paid for this other man to get prosthetic legs. It took him a little while to get fitted and get and learn how to use them. But as of we are speaking today, this man is walking. Now, his legs didn't grow back, but he got prosthetic legs, and he's able to walk again. And so when you perform the imaginal act on somebody, you are not concerned whether you do it upon yourself or on someone else. When you do it, it's all you are concerned about, that it's done already. And so you're not concerned on how it happens, when it happens, and who it happens by. If the mind of a doctor or a inventor who creates something that gives you the ability to enhance your life, that ability came from the imagination. It still came from Jesus Christ. Although he's an inventor, and although it may not be your human flesh, it's still an attachment that gave him the capability to walk again after 30 plus years of never walking. And so it changed his life. And that man was able to walk again. I'm going to give another example. I will leave names out of this one. Well, yeah, I will tell you this one. There was a man who had diabetes. And this man went through some turmoil and was going through a really rough time in his life. I can't tell you all the situation, but I spoke to this individual on the phone. This man who was hurting, going through much pain in his life. And he was also sick. And he had a disease in his body. It was diabetes. And he was living on medication for many years of his life. And without this individual knowing, as we were speaking on the phone, I told my wife that I performed the imaginal act upon this individual, and that I saw him in my imagination better and healed, better than he can see himself, better and healed, completely whole. Well, this individual, this was in a November or September of the month or of the year. And this individual, several months go by, And April comes around, or I think it was either February, March, or April, one of those months that this took place. But I performed the imaginal act it was either a September or a November. And this individual was asked to come and speak. And he felt like he accepted the offer, and he was going to be talking on healing. But yet, he didn't feel qualified because he was living himself with the disease in his body. And he was living off medication. Nothing wrong with living off medication. Medication also comes from the human imagination. If they can heal you or cure you or aid you and enhance your life with the medication to give you capability of living your life in a better way, it still came from the imagination. It still came from a man's imagination, who is Jesus Christ. But this individual didn't feel qualified to speak. And so he began to pray. And this individual prayed. And he said, God, how am I supposed to speak on healing when I myself am not healed? And he felt as though God spoke to him in his own being and said to him, it's because you never asked me. And so this individual said, well then, cure me, heal me. That night, this individual wakes up in the middle of the night. He feels an energy, a power flow through his body while he was sleeping. So he gets up in the middle of the night and he checks his blood sugar. It is perfect. He said, no way, can't be. So he checked it again. It was perfect. He goes back to bed. He wakes up in the morning, checks his blood sugar. It was perfect. He checks it again. It was perfect. He checks it several times throughout the day. It didn't take his it didn't take his medicine. Checked it again and again. Perfect. The next day, the next day, the next day. And by the time he tells me this story, this event that happened to him, and he was able to go and speak at this gathering, and he was able to speak and to talk about healing because it took place in his body. By the time he was telling me this, 4 months had gone by. 4 months have gone by, and I apologize. 3 months had gone by. No medication, completely whole, plus perfect blood sugar levels. So what I'm saying to you is this. Yes, back in February, March, or April, or whatever it was, yes, he asked God to heal him. But it was several months before that we performed the imaginal act. And what did I teach? And what do I say? That the imagination will create the right circumstances. Remember, I told you, do not worry about how it happens, when it happens, and who it happens by. Your concern is that it's already done. The imagination will create this right circumstances to bring to pass what you imagined up here for that individual or for yourself. And so to get this individual to a place of being cured of his disease that he lived for many, many, many years, to get him to a place, we created the imaginal act, and the imagination created the circumstances to put him in a position to be asked to speak at a certain place on healing. And because he didn't feel qualified, he was forced to go to God or consciousness and ask, I don't feel qualified to talk about this subject because I am not cured. How am I supposed to talk about healing if I'm not healed? And so he felt as though that inner conversation, that inner man was speaking to him and said, it's because you never asked. And so this individual had to be put in a position to ask for healing in order to speak at a conference on healing. So this is how it happens. You're not concerned. Do not concern yourself on how it happens, when it happens, and who it happens by. It may take a couple months. It may take 2 weeks. It may take 3 weeks. It doesn't matter how long it takes. You are only concerned the moment that you do the imaginal act on somebody. That is done already. And that is the power. That is the absolute power. All right, I'm going to cut this video short. It's going on 15 minutes. I'll continue on another subject. Continue in this subject, but on another topic. I love you. Peace out.